This is Lady Lex UK. This is episode 4 of Dr. Lex. I've got 3 separate little tutorials in here today. Hope you enjoy. This comment is from Mr. Corduroy.
Do you know how to switch characters within a scene without using to possess imp? Press triangle or R1 to switch kind of thing, thanks if you can.
Right, okay, so I've built myself my game mechanic here, and thanks to Dino X11 for helping me with this one. We've got 3 characters, and I want to be able to swap between all 3 of these. So let's go into play mode and see what I've got. So here's my character. I've got them so their heads light up, so I know which one I've got in control of. You could have any sort of indicator that you like. Maybe a symbol above their head or symbol at their feet, or they are lit up or something. It is entirely up to you. When I press R1, it will swap the character that I have control of. And as you can see, there is no imp floating around. And I've put my own sound effect in for the effect of the swapping. It still uses force possession and possess, but there's a slightly different mechanic been built. So here it is, our mechanic for swapping over the bodies, and each of these have also got something in their microchips. So we'll start off with this microchip. So we're going to need a controller sensor. And this is set to remote controllable because you're not going to be possessing this chip. And we've got a selector. And the mechanic I've chosen at the moment is to have the R1 button. And this will, if I just turn it on, as I press R1, you'll see it's moving through the different options, like so, when I press R1. So we're moving to next output. That's what we've wired the R1 button to. And then here we have some transmitters. I'll call that blue, pink and small. So that's the blue one, the pink one and the small one. So that is sending a signal to these transmitters to say transmit a signal to say I'm going to be used. So every time that these are transmitting, that's the puppet that you've got control of. And these are keyframes that just turn on the glow on their heads. You could have whatever you liked in here, or you could put it in the puppet, it doesn't really matter. Here's our sound effect on the R1 button. So when you press the R1 button, I've got a sound effect happening. And this is a global settings microchip. And this has got allow imps turned off. And that means you won't see the imp in the scene, so that when you're doing your swapping and everything, the imp doesn't fly about. If I didn't have that microchip, if I take it out, you can see the imp flying. Now that might be what you want. So that's what that chip does. Let's put it back in. But I think it looks better without. So that's that. Right, so what is this sending a transmission to? Well, inside all of these puppet logics, in their controller logic, I've added 4 little microchips, 4 little gadgets. One is the receiver. This receiver is looking for the transmitter of blue. Obviously, you probably have character names and things like that. Use those. So this is looking to see if this is transmitting. And I've got it so that it looks for the entire scene, because I don't know how big your scene is likely to be. So you put it in the entire scene because we don't know what the distance between this microchip and your player will be. So stick it on scene wide. So it's looking for the blue transmitter to be sending a signal. When it receives the signal, I've got 2 options. One is directly, it receives a signal, and this is going to force possess the character. or if there is no signal, then this is going to depossess the character. And we only want those things to happen the once. We only don't want it to constantly possess or constantly depossess. So we're using a signal manipulator, and this is set to send a pulse. As soon as that receives a signal the first time, that sends a pulse which will force possess this puppet, or a pulse through this NOT gate which will depossess the puppet. So we're looking to see, is that receiver on? Are we possessing the blue character? We're not possessing the blue character. We need to depossess him. If we are possessing the blue character, then we need to possess him. So those are to be found on this page. So you can see the two wires there. So this signal is going into depossess, and this signal is going into force possession. And that's it. All of them have exactly the same code, except they're looking for a different receiver. So this one's looking for blue. So if I go into this one, this one is looking for the small receiver to be on. And I think you know where this is going. This is looking for the pink receiver to be on. And that's basically it. It's a very simple little mechanic, but very effective. Now, at the moment I've got this wired to the R1 button. If you want, let me just unwire that. And unwire that. You could wire it up slightly differently. So instead of that, we're going to use the D-pad. So the up button goes to A, the down button goes to B, and the left button goes to C. And if we go to this directional buttons, so any directional button will turn on that sound effect. And we press the directional buttons, we're now going to get something different. So when I press down, I get the pink one. Left, I get the small one. Up, I get the blue one. So down, up, and left. So you've got control over which character that you want to control using the directional buttons. So you can play about with this and how which button controls whatever selection. And that's basically it. This comment is from Big Babby Bob 2.
I'm trying to build stairs that when they fall away, if you don't get up them in time, you die and lose a life and spawn to start of level, but when you go back to the stairs they're not coming back again. I also have the stairs in 3 groups with 3 keyframes of them falling away inside a timeline which is hooked to a trigger zone over the stairs. Can I please have some help on this issue, please?
Okay, so I've got a scenario here. I've got my player. I'm going to walk towards these stairs. And I'm going to start walking up them. And I'm taking too long. And the stairs have collapsed. And now I can't get up anymore. But if I die, the stairs go back up to where they were. And we can do the whole thing again. Quick. Nope, still too late. So there we go. So this resets. Now, previously I did a gadget tutorial and I showed you the global settings gadget. And inside here, we have a reset scene. So you could reset the entire scene without needing any of this microchip that I've just done. If you wanted to reset everything, it would reset everything. But if you just wanted to reset this particular little animation here and leave everything else as it is, then you'll need this mechanic. So what we've got in the player, I've got is dead wired to a transmitter. This transmitter is called dead, and that sends out a transmission looking for a wireless receiver to say that the player has died. And here is my microchip, and here is my wireless receiver, and I've got that set to everywhere because I don't know whereabouts the player is likely to be. And when it receives that signal, it resets our animation. So here's our animation. We've got a trigger zone here. This is what sets off my animation. I've got a counter. I've got a timeline. This contains 2 keyframes, one of it in its upright position and one of it, sorry, there we go, in its down position. And I've just blended those 2 animations together so that the stairs collapse. And I've used the same keyframe. I've just grabbed and made a copy of this keyframe so that when the animation is not playing, it's going to have the stairs in this position. So when you walk into the trigger zone, it sets off this counter. This counter, when full, then plays this timeline. When this counter is not full, it plays this keyframe, which puts the stairs back into its original position. When it receives a message from the wireless receiver saying the player has died, it resets this counter and restarts this timeline. And that's it. So that is like a little loop. So it will play the animation once until the player dies, and then it will reset those stairs. And that's it. It's as simple as that. Unfortunately, I can't find the comment, but somebody asked, how do you set a brightness slider so that the player can change the brightness of the level? Right, so to do this, I'm going to set up a bar with a symbol on it that you can slide up and down the bar. And we're going to fiddle about with grade and effects to change the brightness of the entire level. And we're going to got a couple of variables in there that's going to help us do that. So first of all, I've got a big black box and a camera, and that's going to point at the box, and I've drawn a symbol with the paint stroke, and I fiddled about with the tint of it so that I can barely see it on that black background. And I've pointed the camera at it like that. Okay, so let's go into play mode. This is what you get. So I get a bar and I get a symbol here that I can barely see. And I push up on the D-pad and it's increasing the brightness and the level. So you can see the symbol, like so. Now if I go down on the D-pad, the symbol gradually disappears. This is, normally they say to you, change the settings until this is barely visible. So you set it so it's barely visible for your monitor in the center, and then if it's different for anybody else's, they can alter it as they like. Right, so once you've set up that, we need to set up our slider. So I'm going to do one over here. So here's my text displayer. I'm going to put in a space, and I'm going to turn off auto fit. Squish it down to the smallest it will go, and I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller and stretch it out to the size I want my bar to be. And then I'm going to place that horizontal and middle. There we go. Horizontal alignment and vertical alignment in the center, so it's exactly in the center of the screen. Then I take another text gadget, and I'm going to use one of Media Molecule's interface symbols. That's a circle, UI circle, and that is going to have no text box, no border. You can leave the shadow on, but I'm going to turn it off. There we go. And I'm also going to set that horizontal and middle, and then I'm going to set it to custom horizontal. And we'll just see there. We know it's on the right, so we set it at the beginning like that. So once you've done this, you then create 2 keyframes. Let me just delete these now that I've made them. So I've got them over here. So here's my circle. I've named my text box easy, and there's my bar. There's the circle and there's the bar. So we create 2 keyframes. One keyframe is going to put the circle at the, it's really hard to show you, at the beginning of the bar, and this one puts you at the end of the bar. So anywhere along this timeline, it's going to move this circle down the timeline like this. So we've now got some variables. I'm going to set that one as persist. Alright, I've got a variable for the bar. This is going to control the position of our circle, and one for the brightness, which is going to change the grade and effects brightness of our level. There's probably a mathematical way of converting these positions here into the numbers that I need for the brightness, but I'm not going to work it out. I'd rather use 2 variables. It makes it easier for me. So the bar then. You set up your variable to be between 0 and 1 and set the initial value at 0.5. This will put your circle in the middle of your timeline, and we then have, and I've called that bar, and we then have 2 variable modifiers. One is going to increase by 0.1 and one is going to decrease by 0.1. So plus minus 0.1 or plus 0.1, and they're both going to change the variable called bar. So every time I press an up button, that is wired to the power of the plus, and every time I press down, it's wired to the power of the minus. So if I just turn that on, you can see it's moving 0.1 up through the timeline, which is moving this circle down or up like this. Now I've set my timeline up so that number 10 is just on the edge of this, and then you move your trim end exactly on that 10 line, and that's the way it will work nice and smoothly, and you'll get it to the very end like so. Now this variable is going to control the brightness, and it's wired up to variable modifiers for the brightness, but this variable is set so that it has initial value of 0, minus 200 and positive 200, because that's the gradient effects brightness. If we go into brightness here, that is the maximum and minimum that you can set the brightness on the level to. So positive and minus 200. So we start off at 0. We can go down to minus 200 or up to 200. So our modifiers, linked to the same buttons, are going to go up 40 each time. So that's plus 40 or minus 40. Now that gives us a number. This is the variable number that is the brightness for this. But strangely, passing that number directly into gradient effects does not work. I have to divide that number by 100 to get a percentage. So you divide the number by 100 and then pass that into the brightness section. So you can see now as I go up through, it's adding 40 every time until it gets to the top. There we go, and back down. So there we are. And that's what you do. Now, this variable here, brightness, we set that to persist in dreams. So then in every single level, you have this brightness variable linked to the gradient effects in your level. And it will pass the information that you've set it in this level into all of your future levels and all of your grades. So that when they set it once at the beginning, and then it persists through all your levels and changes the gradient effects automatically to the settings that they want. And there we go. There is how to make a brightness slider so that the player can set up their brightness as they want. Hopefully you weren't too disappointed if your query was not answered in a video in this week's Dr. Lex. I am working on some of them. Some of them take a little bit longer to work out than others. But if you can't wait, please go to indreams.me and type your query into the How Do I section. There are lots of people in the Dreamiverse that are there to help you, including Media Molecule, and they have more knowledge than I do, and they can probably get you your answer a lot quicker. But please don't stop putting your comments in and making your queries known, because if I make a video, then other people that come along a bit later on who've got the same issues can learn from my videos. So keep those comments coming, and I'll see you again with another episode of Dr. Lex.